Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to BD Views. I am Mursaleen Siddiqui. The drums of the 13th National Parliamentary election in Bangladesh have begun to beat, and with them, the political atmosphere is reaching a boiling point. What started as a promise for healthy politics has quickly devolved into a familiar scene of aggressive rhetoric and mutual mudslinging. On the very first day of the official campaign, January 22nd, the air was filled not just with promises of development, but with sharp, pointed barbs. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or BNP, and Jamaat-e-Islami, once allies, now find themselves on a collision course. While both parties previously claimed they would move away from the politics of blame, their actions on the ground tell a different story. Analysts observe that both parties are reverting to old habits to secure their banks. Analysts observe that both parties are reverting to old habits to secure their vote banks. However, the intensity of the language used, particularly by the BNP leadership, has raised concerns about whether this verbal war will escalate into physical violence on the streets. BNP Chairman Tariq Rahman, returning to the political spotlight, chose Sylhet to launch his campaign. His speeches, however, were less about his party's future vision and more about attacking his rivals. Without naming names, his targets were unmistakable. He accused a certain party, clearly implying Jamaat, of deceiving the people and even committing shirk by promising tickets to heaven. This aggressive posture marks a significant shift from his earlier calls for unity and reform. The criticism against BNP centers on the harshness of Tariq Rahman's language. In his rallies in Sylhet and Hobiganj, he went as far as to bring up the 1971 Liberation War to attack Jamaat's historical role. While history is immutable, critics argue that using such sensitive historical wounds as a tool for modern electioneering is a desperate move. Tariq Rahman's rhetoric has been described by some as unnecessarily provocative. Furthermore, his religious labeling has sparked a backlash. By accusing opponents of kufr and acting like a mufti, Rahman has stepped into dangerous territory. Political analysts point out that when a political leader starts issuing religious decrees against rivals, it narrows the space for democratic debate. Instead of discussing economics or governance, the narrative is being pushed towards religious extremism. Even other political figures like Nahid Islam of the NCP have criticized BNP's promises. He questioned the feasibility of the family card and the flat for slum dweller schemes, suggesting these are just empty baits. The suspicion is that these promises might lead to further corruption or eviction rather than empowerment. By focusing so heavily on attacking Jamaat and making lofty promises, the BNP leadership risks appearing out of touch with the ground reality, relying on aggression rather than a constructive manifesto. In response to the BNP's barrage of accusations, Jamaat-e-Islami has adopted a stance of self-defense. At a major rally in Mirpur, Dhaka, Jamaat Amir Dr. Shafiqur Rahman and other top leaders addressed the allegations head-on. Their tone was one of disappointment rather than outright aggression. Jamaat leaders questioned why a major party leader would spend his entire speech talking about them instead of his own plans for the country. The response to the ticket to heaven allegation was particularly sharp. Jamaat leaders challenged Tariq Rahman to provide a single instance where they had made such a claim. Mia Gholam Parwar, the Secretary General of Jamaat, noted that for a leader who lived in London for 17 years, one would expect political maturity, not a transformation into a religious mufti who labels other Muslims as infidels. Jamaat's narrative focuses on the idea that they are being forced into this verbal war. They claim that their primary goal is to present a vision for a new Bangladesh focused on the youth and students, but they cannot remain silent when their integrity and faith are questioned. Regarding BNP's family card promise, Dr. Shafiqur Rahman argued that people don't want charity or handouts from the state. They want dignity and employment. He framed his party's stance as one that respects the taxpayers' money rather than using it for political bribery. As the verbal heat intensifies, political analysts warn of the risks. While politics is a game of friends and enemies, the transition from words to violence is a thin line in Bangladesh. The politics of blame can easily turn into politics of blood. The analysts urge party policymakers to ensure that the rivalry stays within the bounds of political discourse. The current trend is worrying. When leaders use terms like vote robbers, terrorists, and traitors, they provide a justification for their followers to engage in conflict. The focus must shift back to the people. Voters deserve to hear about education, health, and the economy, not just about who did what in 1971 or who is a better Muslim. Ultimately, the call to all political parties is clear. Do not cross the limit. Democracy thrives on debate, but it dies in chaos. The leadership of BNP, Jamaat, and other parties must exercise restraint. The goal of the election should be to build a stable nation, not to burn bridges that might be needed for future governance. The people are watching, and they seek a leader who can offer solutions, not just insults. The current verbal warfare between political heavyweights signals a volatile election season. While fierce debate is the heartbeat of democracy, it must never descend into violence. For the sake of the nation's stability, leaders must prioritize policy over provocation and ensure that the battle for votes remains civil. That's all for today. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep watching BD Views. If you find our reports insightful, please subscribe to our channel. Allah Hafiz.